are doing his thing. What is happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. If you are watching this, and chances are your Saturday did not go quite as well as you had hoped. You know, I say that every time. I have no idea when people watch these videos. I know a lot of y'all watch them while y'all are at work. So chances are this is not Saturday when you're watching this. So anyway, what's kicking, y'all? Checking in with y'all, seeing how everything's going. As you can see, little Miss Sierra is back, doing her thing. If y'all haven't caught it yet, check out the video. Got a ride-along video with Sierra, just kind of kicking it out and about. Classic Cruiser, what's up, man? Dim Boys is in, saying, hey, man, what's going on, Dim? So, truck's running great. Big shout-out to Dr. Differential. Justin and the crew over there took good care of her. Had some goofy requests along the way, and they took care of me pretty good. So, not just Mopar Shop, he took care of me on this, so that's a good deal. Been dying to get her back, finally got her back, was able to get some playtime in with her, and then of course there's always some punch work to do, so yeah, I'm just kind of going through the truck. I'll be doing a little bit more fine tuning with it, but really all in all, the truck runs great. The funny thing about it though, so what I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about classic cars, because I know a lot of you guys are into classics, and you know, it's kind of funny because you see these things and they look really good and they sound good and all of that, but it's funny, the reality living with a classic, you know, and that's really kind of more the point. It's, you know, so you've got your classic car. There's so many compromises you have to make by today's standards. So if you watch those videos, the second time I get on it, I'm actually in it for about as long as you could really stay in it realistically. Because at about 90 miles an hour-ish, this thing's pretty freaking scary. And I wasn't even going that fast, just shy of that. So it's interesting. I mean, it's screaming, it's yelling, it's and by today's standards, it's slow, right? But it's just so much dumb fun. You know, up to about 60 or 70 miles an hour, this thing freaking rips. And I guess by comparison, yeah, of course, it's not fast. I mean, it's a 3/4 ton truck, for crying out loud, but it will absolutely light the tires up, and it is so much fun, and it sounds so good. This worn out old 400 small block that she's got. I mean, it's rocking blow by, you know, there's some questionable carburetor things going on with it right now. So, but anyway, all of that aside, the truck runs amazingly well, and I couldn't imagine it running any better than it does. So, anyway, I'll make some more tweaks, do some more tweaks and things like that. I'm gonna hook the wideband up to it and just do some idle circuit tuning, but that's about it. She's doing good where she's at. One of the things that was done to the truck was an electric fuel pump, and that in and of itself had just presented a ton of challenges. And what's funny as hell is there was, I guess, a Roadkill Garage that was on last night or today. I don't know when it was. I saw it. Anyway, they were having the same problems that they were having over at Dr. Differential, trying to get their 67 or whatever it was to run on an electric fuel pump. It's just there's an issue with siphoning and all of that. So anyway, again, Dr. Differential, they came up with a solution for mine, and it works great. The funny thing, though, is vapor lock. The whole big reason around all of this, God, what just flew at my face, was vapor lock. And the funny thing about it is it will still kind of vapor lock, but it doesn't really vapor lock. So the electric fuel pump is there to basically force feed that carburetor fuel. And it's doing it from a cooler place. In other words, the temperature is not quite as high. but it's able to basically, it's a deadhead system, but it's able to stick that carburetor with about, 6 pounds of fuel pressure. But if it does start to get hot and it gets any boilage or anything like that, it'll still maintain around 3 or 4 PSI until you whack the throttle and cool things off. So anyway, I was able to kind of do some experimentation with the truck today and play with that. But I've been driving her around all day, running errands with her. In fact, I went to the tire shop and been out cruising around, and everybody loves Sierra. So anyway, good job, baby. But let me check in with you guys real quick. Enough of my blathering on. Starting back from the top. Sub B, that's some classic cruising. Dim Boys again, what's up? Dog Power saying first, no way. Boosted Amy saying, hi, I got the arm flex, I like it. Dim Boys saying, lately I've had Hellcat fever. I'm really thinking about getting a Hellcat red eye wide body. I narrowed it down to 4 colors. Very nice. Donald Power saying he's got a buddy with a 502 crate with aluminum heads. Definitely a fun engine. I thought about pulling this engine and going big block, but man, it's too easy to work on it with it being a small block. And when it comes time, I don't think I'm going to go LS swap with it. I'm really on the fence with that. But the 400 small block, good enough. It gives it a lot of character, if nothing else. Katie Seen say, what up, Mason? Got the arm flex. CJ Colvin saying, hey, brother B, what's up? How's it going? It's going good. CJ's asking, what do you think of the RPM Act? I think we're talking about it a little bit late. So, what's funny? I got the letter from Senator Cornyn. I had written in, and basically the gist of it was it was submitted in the 116th session in 2019. And it was not resubmitted, if you want to call it, I don't know the right terminology, but I'm trying to remember. Anyway, they didn't bring it up in 2020. So basically we're talking about something from 2019. I guess if, we need to recall the RPM Act and try to get it. What the hell is in my freaking nose? Okay. Got a hair grown up into my brain. If they need to recall the RPM Act, maybe that's what they're needing to do. But to be honest with you, it was something from 2019. And, there's a lot of folks that see the RPM Act as, they get it, but they're just not going to do much with it. So, basically the gist of that, the gist of the letter that I got back was, I wish I had it with me. Basically, something to the effect of they get that people want to modify their car for racing. And his point of view is basically, it's kind of like, why are we even talking about this? There was like a tone to it. Like, yeah, just make a hot rod. Who cares? So anyway, that's kind of the tone, I guess. It's not what he said, but that's kind of the tone. But anyway, we'll see if it grows any legs at some other point. But right now, it's kind of dead. Dim Boys Running saying, I wonder, is the Viper dead at this point? Is there still hope? Hope springs eternal, D. So what I've been talking about with the Viper, and a lot of people have been agreeing with this, the Viper is not a viable product moving forward. Not with the V10, not with the manual transmission only. It is a niche product. This is the funny thing. So Dodge is a niche brand, and the Viper is a niche product within a niche brand. But I'll take it a step further, that falls into a category that is niche or niche, potato, that falls into a category all its own. It's like third tier down, like you got to really dig to get to that car. And what I mean by that is, you've got to be a performance car enthusiast. First of all, you got to be well off. Then you got to be a performance car enthusiast. You've got to be skilled enough to drive the thing. And you've got to want to own something like that and live with something like that on some regular basis, whatever that regularity is. Subjective terms here. The problem, I guess, in what absolutely killed the Viper was the Z06. And for damn good reason. The Z06 is just a better Viper than the Viper is. And I know this because I've owned 3 of them. And I'll tell you this right now, the Viper cannot Corvette as good as the Corvette. And what I mean by that is the Viper has a standalone engine that's not compatible with anything else, which immediately creates a bunch of problems for bean counters. Secondly, it's manual transmission only. That's got a couple of segments alienated already. You got people that don't want a manual transmission, and you got people that can't drive a manual transmission already kicked out of the running. A lot of folks don't want a manual transmission anymore for a couple of reasons. One, automatics are just a lot better these days in terms of being faster. They put up a better number. 2, chicks don't like cars necessarily with manual transmissions from a percentage standpoint. All right. Yeah, I know chicks out there, I love driving stick. Okay, fine. You do. But there's a lot that don't. And it's not chick friendly. So when you have a car like the Corvette that is, a lot of ladies love driving Corvettes. A lot of ladies buy Corvettes. And, I think the buying demographic for Vipers was probably somewhere in the 90 percentile range as far as male to female. It's not good. You got to have a broader base. And when your church is that narrow, you just simply cannot bring anybody into the door, through that door. So my recipe for the perfect Viper basically goes like this. All aluminum 392, different intake manifold, different cam profile, somewhere around 540 horsepower. That gets you for your NA. Second would be Hellcat variant of the aluminum block, maybe, but just Hellcat the Viper. Give it the 8-speed automatic and both ways, HP 90 both ways too, with the trimming as an option. Basically, resurrect the C7 Z06 in certain ways. And you got yourself a winner. And you've got yourself a car that's easy to own, it's easy to buy, it's easy to justify, but it's easy to drive. And with that recipe, that's basically how you bring buyers and put asses in seats of the new Viper. Look, there was a lot of talk back in 2016 when the 5th gen got 86th. It was a year after that, but there was a lot of talk in 2016 leading up to that car being canceled about what they can do to make it a viable platform. And everything that I'm telling you, these are all things that were discussed. So I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening with it. I would like to hope that that platform doesn't just die. I don't want to see the Viper it's too iconic at this point of a car as just an American anomaly. But the problem with American anomaly, it's a curio, meaning it's a curiosity, as opposed to a name brand household product like the Corvette. And you got to remember, Viper will always be a Dodge, and Corvette will always be a Corvette. Corvette is a brand in and of its own. And the problem is that Dodge, it looks like they tried to do that with the Viper. The problem with that, though, is that there's not varying models of the Viper. And you can say, well, there's the ACR and there's the... Hold on, Kimo Sabi. That's not what I'm talking about. You've got the Stingray, the Grand Sport, the Z06, the ZR1. That is the spread that you need. Not here's my $175,000 car and here's my $275,000 car. The other thing is that car, if you've never driven one, so it's off-putting. I don't really know how to explain the Viper. The Viper has a problem with gearing. And if the Viper has the 3.54 gear set in it, like the Gen 2, it used to be a popular gear swap. With that gear swap, the car becomes fun. It becomes playful. It becomes spirited. With the 308 gear, 309, whatever is in that rear end, it's got this lumbering first gear that's got a weird elastic band effect. And it's not exciting. Not to mention the driving position is still kicked over to the left. And it's just a bizarre, that's led to wrecks. Okay. I mean, it's just you've got to just be about the Viper life to want the Viper. And man, a lot of people get tired of that act pretty quickly. And again, here's the worst part about it though. The worst part about the Viper is it has extremely small recidivism. And that is to say that people that get out of a Viper don't get into a new Viper. They don't come back into the fold, so to speak. People that get out of Vipers get Z06s, okay? And for good reason. Z06 available with an automatic or a manual transmission. Great ergonomics versus crap ergonomics. Great looking car. Viper is a stunning looking car. But again, that's just kind of the progression there. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question, if there was a question with that. Let's see. BB's saying, "Sub Ryan, Subby, you talk about fuel quality a lot. I go to Chevron or Shell. What are your thoughts on where to go to get good race petrol? Shell or Chevron are both good. Normally, Exxon is also good, but my thing is this: fresh fuel is really more to the point. Just don't let it sit. That's one of the issues that I think I've run into is I've just had fuel sit in a tank for a week. Weird atmospheric conditions changing around. If it goes from hot to cold and you get condensation or whatever, anyway, yeah, fuel quality is a real issue, and it's something that I was freaking out about the last go around. So yeah, fuel quality is a major pain in the ass. But Shell is always consistent, if nothing else. CFL got the thumbs up. CJ's talking about gas is going up because of Biden shutting down the pipeline. Maybe. Let's see. Oh, Doctor's saying, "He, what's up?" Saying, calling in early night, so I won't make the whole show. How are you? Thoughts on the wife's Camaro? Been a fun car for us. It's not an IROC there you got there. Oh yeah, no, mine, my wife's is a Rally Sport. Yeah, wife's Camaro look good, man. Keep that nitrous in there though. Dr. Div saying, y'all hit the like button. Doctor saying, yes, Hellcat the Viper 8-speed on the 6.2 and make it light. It will fly and be fast fucking car. That's one of the issues. You know, the problem with the Viper is that right now it just can't get any love from Dodge. And hi, Stellantis. Brian Mason here. Seems like you need a little bit of help in your marketing department. Call me, hit me up, DM me, check me out on Instagram. Give me an office ready. You need me there badly. Yeah, it's weird. Dodge right now does not have a halo car. There is nothing halo about the Super Stock. They've already butchered the marketing on that badly enough as it is. The Red Eyes, TRX, it's a neat truck, but it's a big truck, you know? Challenger and Charger are fantastic, but we're getting to the point now where we need to see something a little bit different. They're cool and all, but they've been out since 2015. By the time it's all said and done, that car is going to be a decade deep into a production run, which isn't a bad thing, but 10 years is a long time, and it's a long time when you've got your competition that's continuously evolving. Now, you can make the case that there's really nothing that competes with the Challenger or the Charger in the marketplace. I get that. And you'd be correct in saying that. And stock for stock, I mean, the 392 cars are real difficult to beat on a drag strip. But real talk, a drag strip can mean a lot of different things, and a drag race can also mean a lot of different things to different people. So I would say that at some point within the next couple of years, I would like to see something new from Dodge. Not saying that there's anything wrong with the Challenger. They keep selling like crazy and for a lot of good reasons. But that new Mustang, they run good. I'm not going to say that they're mind-blowing, and they kind of have their niche. And I've said this over and over again. You could have a 392 car right here and a Mustang right here in your garage, and there wouldn't really be any interbreeding there. They're such two completely different animals, and they have completely different driving experiences associated with them. You can literally have the bookend of a fun driving experience with those two cars in your garage. But as it goes, you have to remove all of this modern, crazy, supercharged hypercar. You got to start removing that out of the conversation. And modding the cars is something that, people buy Mustangs because of potential. They're buying potential. They're not buying the car itself. And, stock, they're fun. They're a mid 12-second car to low 12-second car, depending on the density altitude and the way you have them set up. Do that all day long in those cars. Same with the Challenger. Same for the Camaro, for that matter. But isn't it funny how it took us forever to get to the Camaro? Yeah, that thing is stung. CJ is saying the Viper also needs to have an all-aluminum 426. If they would actually make it, get it through the EPA, get it through all the things that they need to do, maybe. But they've already got the 392, and it would be so easy. All things considered, I mean, the block would be the same. A 426 is going to have the exact same bore as the 6.2 or the 392. So what's the difference, right? Build a 392, but make it out of aluminum. A couple of tweaks, couple of this, couple of that. Next thing you know, you drag the thing from 485 to 525, 530 horse. But you put it in a car that only weighs 3,500 pounds, not 4,200 pounds. It's a big difference there, guys. The thing would absolutely scream. So, I don't know. And you can do that with existing technology. Just think of what you can do with advanced technology. Take that same engine, that same type of an architecture, 4-cam it. Now we're talking something nasty. But again, that is a lot of development, a lot of R&D. And I don't think that there's, to be honest with you, I just don't think that there's any motivation. Regardless of money in the bank, there's just no motivation to do it. The reason why, look, if it ain't broke, they ain't going to fix it. And right now, Challenger's looking like it ain't broke. Charger's looking like it ain't broke. So, and at the rate they're throwing Hellcat engines into things, I mean, why wouldn't they come out with a Hellcat-sized Viper? They need to. Doctor is saying, keep that long hood and the big front fenders, modernize it, maybe some user-friendly stuff like traction control and an option to shut it off. Like the Scat and the Hellcat, then let it eat. Fun stuff. Gearing is everything. It's the name of the shop. So the big deal is, I mean, the problem with the 308 gear in those cars is it just makes it, how do I explain this, man? It makes it feel like a dog out of the hole. I mean, they just feel slow, even though they're not. That's not to say that they are. It's just this perception of speed is so weird. Perfect example of that is Sierra. Sierra's not fast, especially not by the standard of today, but damn if it doesn't make you think she's fast. I mean, she is absolutely making a fuss And it's great. You just watch the video. It's lighting the tires up, she's banging gears, doing all kinds of cool stuff, making all the right noises. It's a freaking riot. The speedometer is irrelevant at that point. So the flip side of that, the yin to that yang behind me, is the Viper or the manual transmission Hellcats, but the Vipers are a little bit worse, where you roll into the throttle in first gear and it's like the end of it never seems to come. And the problem is that the G-force, the force that you're getting pushed back into the seat, it's just not there. There's a lot of snappier cars out there that would get your attention a lot more quickly than that car would. So, and the other thing too is the other problem with the Viper, without having like a lowercase v here, right? Like a 540 horse car. The problem, if you have a 540 horse car, you can gear it more aggressively because the Tremec transmission will have the right torque capacity at that power level. It'll just be more aggressive. The first gear will be. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is you can't keep making cars that are only fun at you go straight to jail speeds. Like, Sierra, perfect example of this. This truck is a freaking riot below the speed limit. All right. I mean, it'll get you the speed limit fairly quickly, shockingly quickly for a 3/4 ton truck. But it's getting there that's fun. It's not like that's the start of the race. That's the end of it with these things. So they're just not that exciting. And the problem is you're trying to sell excitement with something that has big horsepower numbers and supposedly great acceleration numbers, but the excitement, the feel in your back, the feel in your butt, it just is not there. And it is what it is, guys. I mean, I hate to say it like that. And that's one of the reasons why the Z06 is so great to drive. Aggressive transmission gearing in a lightweight car with really good ergonomics. What's not to love? So anyway. CJ saying, how's the blue 72 GMC doing? It's a C25 actually. Doing good. Just posted a video earlier today. Go check it out. Shawnee's saying, good evening. What's up, Sean? Dr. Div saying they need to mass produce it and make it cost effective like the Corvettes. Well, that's the other side of it too, guys, is that they haven't. And that's what's killing it. But the thing, okay, so if they mass produce it, it has to be mass marketable to be mass produced. And that is the issue. The car leading up to this point was simply not mass marketing material. Again, you got to break it down like to the tier that it fits into. It's almost not even worth marketing the car. I mean, it's good to have in a print ad. In that respect, they're stunning to look at. They're gorgeous cars, but they just don't garner a whole lot of love. Not the way that the Corvette does. And again, it's just not marketable that way. Dr. Div checking in with Sean. Let's see. Tuxedo saying, nice truck. It's parked really close. How big is it? It is a 1972 3/4 ton GMC. So she's long bed and she's big, but that's all right. She's awesome. I love her. Directionally correct. Got the arm flex. I like it. Gary Fuller saying, love the GMC. Thank you very much. Shawnee saying, oh yeah, he got the his Coyote in the 1180s with just a few mods, and he's going to be going in with a tune next time in. Very nice. Dr. Div saying, need me there badly. That's the truth for sure. Oh, Sean saying, wife's Camaro versus Sierra. Who wins and why? Sierra will mop the floor of that rally sport. Sierra's just too hard out of the hole. The Camaro wouldn't stand a chance. I mean, Sierra would put bus links on that Camaro. So no, it's just Sierra's got a better gearing and a lot more torque than that 305. Got to remember, Sierra's engine is 100 cubic inches larger. Even though she weighs more, she's got more junk in the trunk. Oh, Shawnee says a 500 to 600 foot DA and a light tailwind. What else do we want in life, right? XC's asking, what are your opinions on the Challenger 1320? I'll tell you, they started out pretty lackluster, but I have one of the most fun experiences I've ever had was with a buddy of mine in his 1320, and I grew to love that car. Him and I spent about 2 hours one night because the track had closed. We spent 2 hours one night in Mexico, of course, making hit after hit after hit in that car in as delivered form, as delivered air pressure in the tires, factory Nexons on all four corners. And on the street with us in the car, we were running 12.2 every single time we made a hit with that car. Again, this is on the street, no prep, two guys in the car, full tank of gas, very full weight in as delivered form. And I got to tell you, we had so much fun in that car, and it completely changed my opinion of that car. Then at Moparmageddon, which is my private event, we had both of his 1320s there, and he ran 1140s with that car, and with one of them, and low 1150s with the other. And it's funny that, again, the car just kind of grew on me. And I got to tell you, for a grassroots NA guy, somebody that's going to really be going to the drag strip every weekend, somebody like me, somebody that literally is there every weekend that they're open, the 1320 is a really good play if you want to get out there and just have fun. The idea with a 1320 is to be in a mid 11-second car in good air on a drag pack and just be out there enjoying yourself, having fun in a car that's durable enough to do it. I like them. Now, my criticisms early on, first of all, is I thought they were going to put a gear in the thing. In other words, a different rear end, and they obviously didn't. And I was hoping for something in the engine compartment to be a little bit different. And of course, that wasn't any different. So the disappointment, I guess, was there. But again, after playing with one for the amount of time that he and I were playing with it, we're going back and forth. We're laughing like a couple of dumb kids, swapping chairs. And, you know, at this point, you know, we're just about to the point of taking notes, and, you know, we're making passes, and we're not even looking around. We're just watching the time slip come up, you know. Lots of fun. So again, a lot of fun on the street. You can 1320, you can use every horsepower that your hard-earned dollar buys with that car on the street. You can't say that about a lot of cars. You certainly can't say that about a Hellcat on drag radials on the street, but you can with one of the 1320s or a Shaker or something like that. They're fast. They're a lot of fun. From a roll, they're worthless, but on the drag strip and from a dig, they own it. So everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, and that's where those cars, I mean, they just rule the roost of drag strip and dig racing. You know, factory stuff, honest to goodness factory stuff. And so anyway, I'm gushing on, but I love it. Dr. Joe saying I hit the $150 on the dry roads we had earlier, and man, it rolls the fuck out of what it is. She wasn't happy with me, although Tuner Cat Prima Programming is it HP Tuners. No, it didn't. Uncle Stickford saying, sub dude, love the truck. Watch the vid you posted, and that is a nice truck, man. Thank you very much. Big shout out to Dr. Differential and the team over at Dr. Differential and Speed for doing a great job on Little Miss Sierra. I did have some pretty goofy requests in there, and they took care of me and tolerated me very well. So good job, fellas. So yeah, no, I'm just out enjoying the truck, having a good time with her. Been out running errands with her today, and Sierra gets thumbs up everywhere she goes. Everybody loves it. Everybody's got a story, man, and everybody's always, yeah, what's up? Got the hang loose today too. So yeah, definitely having fun with her. CJ saying Challenger when styling. Yeah, they are pretty. Doctor just says she wants to take nitrous out of it. Shawnee's checking out, saying good night, catch up tomorrow. Sounds good. Oh, Shawnee's talking about a 6-speed Scat, saying his 392 Scat 6 could not be any different than my Coyote 10-speed. You are correct, Mr. Mason. And a Hellcat makes a nice piece of meat in that sandwich, for sure. Absolutely. Doctor is saying, yeah, Sierra's trans bangs for sure. That hot rod feel without overkill. That's very true. Just got to get that pan gasket and tube in check. Oh, that's nothing. Easy stuff. Punch work, man. No big deal. Old car problems. Maybe worth some Permatex, right stuff, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things to fiddle with, but I mean, that's going to happen. It's an old car. You got old car problems. Old cars do old car things. So not a big deal. Easy peasy, Japanesey, and it's out to rock out after that. So yeah, not a big deal. Vortex Chevy is not what to love. That's awesome. But yeah, we'll see you in the AM. Give me a shout when you're on the way. Katie C saying, yeah, Mason, I'm with you on the Viper 392 idea. Plus, people have been wanting a lightweight car with a torquey 392, and it would be a nice day and night unique driving experience than what's out now. Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, look, the Viper, how do I say this and make sense? Because this is one of those. Okay, so if you go all the way back to the Viper's original development, not the final thing. When Carroll Shelby was in on that car, it was his desire to have an all aluminum V8 in the Viper. And the V10, if I remember correctly, was a modified version of a Lamborghini Marine engine that was tweaked and had some other things by one of the Dodge. Anyway, there was such a convoluted story. I've got 2 books at the house, and there's kind of some conflicting stories. Anyway, long story short, there were a lot of people that didn't want the V10 in that car to begin with. And if we're going to go all Zura Artist Duntov on the Viper here with Carroll Shelby, I would say put the freaking aluminum V8 in the thing. Make it appealing to a lot more people than just... Look, let me be honest with you. It's not the Mopar purist that's buying the Viper. That's a problem. It needs to be a Mopar centric type of car. It needs to be competitive, but it doesn't need to be too garish. It's got to be able to appeal to a broader base. And again, your church cannot be that narrow. And it is in this case. And without the appeal to more of the masses, the car will just never get off of a drawing board, which is a shame. Because, I mean, could you imagine just the sexy styling of what that Viper would look like and what it would bring to the table with an automatic transmission and an all aluminum 392 and then a Hellcat-sized version of whatever engine is in the car. Whether it's an aluminum Hellcat, which I don't think would be a good idea, bad idea. I would stick with the iron block and just, it's going to be heavier, but at that point, who cares? It's got all the powers. So, oh, hang on a second. Dr. Diff, thank you very much. 1320, a 6.4 car. Yeah, unfortunately. And that's the thing. I mean, you almost wish that the 1320 would have been that April 26th, 426, that it would have been kind of in lockstep. Okay, so one of the things that kind of pickled my shit just a little bit was, if I remember correctly, the 1320 went on sale like in August or September. Anyway, there was a Happy Hemi Day, which kind of strikes a sour chord with me because Dodge doesn't have a 426, not available to everybody, at least, not over the counter, if you will. But they're saying Happy Hemi Day, haha. Yeah, okay, well, I guess, but since you don't make a 426, I guess it's not that happy of a Hemi Day. It just goes to show how over their shoulder Dodge is with their marketing. And I hate to be the one that, oh God, I'm just giving away all this free advice. I hate to be the one that breaks it to Dodge, but a lot of the people that were buying the cars back then are dead now. Their kids have some nostalgia for it, but there's folks that are going on their 80s and 90s that bought those cars new 40, 50 years ago. And they're just getting older. You need something for the youth. You need something to really invigorate the 20-year-olds of today. Something for the 25-year-old guy or gal that's into hot rods. That's who you need to be marketing towards. Not some old fart with a bunch of money, but to somebody that maybe could buy that hot rod. That if you were working overtime. See, the problem is, God, I'm telling you, Stellantis, you need to just, the problem is the Corvette used to be the working person's, what's the right word I'm looking for? It was a working class hero of the sports car world. If you were putting in the work and you had a little bit of overtime and you picked up an extra shift or you picked up an extra account, you could afford the Corvette. It was attainable. Well, the problem is it's not quite attainable anymore. And taking the old existing Gen 5 platform and sticking a V8 that the tooling has already been bought and paid for a long time ago shouldn't be that difficult. A slight rework of the firewall to make pedals a little bit more accessible, and you've got a winning combination. So for me, I look at it from a viability standpoint. I mean, I know the car would perform well, but from a marketability and just from a product viability platform, it would make sense to go that route. TikTok, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate that, bud. Let's see. Oh, Tuxedo said that truck reminds me of an old school Chevrolet Silverado, but probably because it's a General Motor brand vehicle. That's right, it is. Hence the name GMC, General Motors Corporation. CJ saying my 96 F-150 with a 5-liter feels like a race car compared to our 2012 Jeep Patriot. I bet it does. Thanks again, Doc. I appreciate it. Jay saying, thank you. We love the truck. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do too. It's a lot of fun. How much fun is it? Check out the video that I posted today. I'm just like a dumb kid in this truck. I can see the thing is, so I was telling Justin over at Dr. Differential, I was saying, look, the idea with this truck is it's the truck that I never had when I was a kid. This is the truck that, if I were 16 or 17 years old back in the day, that's the truck that I would have wanted. And or would have been able to get. People always go, short bed, C10 or whatever. And I'm like, the more I started thinking about it, I was even saying that too. And my wife's like, no, man, look at this. And we started looking at 3/4 tons and it was like, oh, that really actually makes more sense to me. So anyway, this would have been something I could have maybe afforded because nobody wants a 3/4 ton, right? They always want the C10. And so anyway, the more I've been playing with this, and the more it's just grown on me and grown on me and grown on me. And today I just had so much fun with it, I couldn't even see straight. So anyway, I'm just having a ball with the truck. Love it, love it. CJ saying, I watched the video of Sierra, and brother, man, can that old truck move? Saying his 96 OBS gets attention as well. I get. Oh, Tuxedo saying, speaking more about trucks, my grandmother used to have one that was blue-green, two cabin, and my uncle had a lot of fun. Oh, had a fun chance to ride in the back. Very nice, man. Saying, I don't know if it's illegal for kids and my mother was wondering about that too, to ride in the back. So, man, I don't know. We used to ride in the back of trucks when I was a kid all the time. We used to pile in the back of the truck and have the surfboards and, run to the coast every weekend. So, yep. Let's see. XD's asking, what are the pros and cons of a 392? Pros are that they're very torquey engines. They're very snappy. They've got very long runners. As a matter of fact, I just got through porting an intake for Dr. Differential. They've got very long runners, extremely high flowing heads, 330, 340 CFM heads. A camshaft that is very well suited to low and mid-range power. And that's what they do best. They have incredible tip-in throttle response and are able to get one of those barges to get out of their own way to the tune of, it's not uncommon to see Challengers running 11s on a drag pack with ease. The downside to them, well, there's really not a downside to them. I've even made a video asking the question, is this the best engine that they've ever made? Now, you're going to hear people say, well, they don't take well to boost. God. Okay. That is a nugget of truth basically being used to describe the engine as a whole, and it doesn't work like that. So the 392's got a large bore size, and the ring gap is fairly tight. It's done for efficiency. It's also kind of high up on the piston. Again, it's an NA engine. It was designed as a naturally aspirated engine. So in that respect, do they take well to boost? All engines take well to boost, but to do it right, you do have to put ring gap into that engine, which means the engine has to come out of the car, needs to be completely disassembled, gap opened up, put the thing back together, and then put some boost to it. In that respect, you could probably get away with 10, 12 pounds of boost on the thing and not have too many issues. On the street, again, now you're going to run into fuel quality issues. So for you guys that don't know, the shop is located near Velocito, Mexico. We got a lot of guys going out and making test hits. Weather was nasty earlier today. It's gotten really pretty today, though, or this evening. So if you hear something in the background, that's what that is. This guy's heading out there to make some hits. Vince, thank you very much. Saying, hey, B, I'm a newbie to performance. I know next to nothing and have been loving your channel and growing in knowledge. Just want to show some support. Man, I appreciate that, Vince. Thank you very much. Very cool. Thank you. Very kind of you. Hopefully I'm helping you along on your journey. You got any questions, feel free to ask. Hopefully I can answer them for you. I do get stumped on occasion, though. Happens more often than not. But, sorry, getting back to your question. So those are the pros. It's just a really good engine in general. Now, the cons. I can't really call these cons because it's not the fault of the engine. But, well, here we go. First con of the engine of a 392, again, if you want to call it that, is that its blessing is its curse. Everything that makes it really good makes that engine to where it doesn't really respond in terms of big power gains with things like camshafts and long tube headers and things like that. They just don't, because the stock camshaft's already a fairly aggressive piece as it is. And if the lobe separation angle, which is way wide, not to be confused with Wu-Tang, but lobe separation is real wide. And because of that, long tube headers don't work that well because there's just not enough scavenging. There's not the opportunity for the scavenging to take place. If that stock cam were just tightened up to like a 112 or a 113 LSA, that thing would make about another 40 foot-pounds of torque through the middle of the power band, you would think, right? But it just doesn't work like that. The cam is really good, so they don't pick up as much. All you really do is shift the power over to the right, if you will, and allow the thing to be able to rev out. You'll be able to carry power better, but making more power is actually kind of tough. Reason for that, it's the intake manifold. So everything about that intake manifold is designed for mid-range power. It's really designed from 25 or 2 to 2,500 RPM to about 5,500 RPM, 6,000 RPM. The runners are just really, really long, and there's no way to get around that fact. The aftermarket doesn't freaking support the 392. The reason why they don't support the 392 is because the 392 is in heavy cars. Go back to square one on this. They have long runners to get those barges out of their own way. If you put a short runner intake on a Hemi, it will try to rev to the moon. The cam has a wide lobe separation angle, which means that the power curve, from your point of view, just comes up to a point and flattens out and stays there. Tabletops power with a short runner intake. That's great for running out the back side of a drag strip, but not that great for running through gears, and you lose all the torque down here. That's what got you out of the hole to begin with, and it makes the car feel slow. I've driven a lot of cam 392 cars over the years, and I can tell you that it only recently have the cam manufacturers been able to put low profiles together, and like guys like me that spec cams and put cams together for guys. It's tough to get one that works properly. Anyway, with the weight that you're dealing with. So that gets back to the cylinder heads. Okay, so the cylinder heads flow crazy numbers. They've got ports that are freaking this big around, okay? You can like just about stick your fist in them seemingly. But they have very great, they have extremely good flow. Like used to be, like that would be a big block head flow number, like a aftermarket big block head flow number. The problem with that is that it doesn't promote velocity down low. So you would think that if you put a short runner intake on it, a cam with a lot of duration, be able to rev that thing to the moon, you'd be in good shape. You would. The only downside again is that you would make a good horsepower number, but your torque would come up, it would tabletop, it would flatline at a real low number, and it would just kind of stay there. Again, it would just make the car feel like a turd. So the ups and downs of the 392 have more to do with the platform that it's bolted to than it at all has anything to do with that engine. Now, the aftermarket does support that platform, albeit in very small doses. So you've got Edelbrock with the Victor intake, which is basically just a 6.1 intake manifold that, I mean, my only experience with that manifold has been with stroker combinations, to be honest with you guys. And not many 392 guys have bothered with it because they lose a lot of bottom end torque. I've heard reports of people picking up mid-range power with that intake, but it's a trade-off. For what you get in mid-range, you lose on the big end and the bottom end. I don't know. Again, the only experience I have with them are for 426s and 426s only. And those cars ran good. I mean, Anyway, I think you get the idea. And then the sniper intake with the short runners, I don't even know what to tell you about that. I don't know what application that would actually be useful in, unless you were gutting a car to make it a road race car or a drag race car, something that's going to spend a lot of time at high RPM. And when I say high RPM, I'm talking 6,500 RPM and up, like basically where the current 392 6.4, where that engine ends now, that's really where that intake takes over. And you're talking 6,500 to 7,500 RPM, 7,900 RPM. That's really where you're going to need to be looking at in terms of making power, at least to 7,200 RPM. So, that 5,500 to 72, 74, 7,000-ish 100 RPM, basically 5 to 7. That's where that engine's going to be doing all of its work. And the problem is that, again, you sacrifice all of that power down low to get you up, to pick up whatever power you pick up top. It's just not very attractive. So because it's not a very attractive proposition, the way that it is for the LS is because you've got cars in the LS family that make, I don't know, the Challenger and the Charger look like battleships by comparison. I mean, the Corvette, the Camaro, both weigh substantially less. And so you can get away with short runners and bigger camshafts, and you make in bigger numbers because you just don't need the torque to get the things out of the hole. You can just let the thing rip up top and go through the gears. So lots of ways to skin a cat, and I get that, but that's just some of the reasons why. Let's see. Exy's asking, what are your opinions on the Korean V8 like the Genesis? Here's the thing with the Genesis. I can't find any fault with it. It's the Korean Coyote, and they work pretty good. And you'll find that that's really more the case across the board. I mean, the Lexus SC 500, kind of the same idea. All of those 5-liter-esque engines that are making anywhere from 415 to 455, 460 horsepower, they're all really good. And here's the thing with Genesis: warranty like you wouldn't believe, and customer service like you wouldn't believe. So, it may not necessarily be the fastest thing on the street, but damn, man, don't let it suffer by comparison, because they don't suck. Believe that. Let's see. Modern Red Hemi did some porting to his 392 intake manifold on his ProCharge 5.7. And man, that thing's a monster. Also, the 392 Hemi V8 in my dad's 2019 Charger Scat Pack sure is a beast. They're a lot of fun. And yeah, like I say, I literally just got through porting one. By the way, I don't know if Dr. Diff's still on here, but dude, that intake, throat part of it, cool. Runners, and what's with the inconsistent casting? Anyway, that one, it's done. It's just one of those type of an intakes. X45 is asking, what are the best mufflers for the lease drone? I like MagnaFlow because they're flow through. The chambered mufflers can have a tendency to drone a little bit more than a flow through, but I'll take MagnaFlow for the win on that one. Dr. Div's talking about putting somebody in timeout. I didn't know. I didn't see it. So, CJ saying the 392 V8 pretty much way too perfect. Yeah, I mean, they're just really good. That's a Mustang, and it sounds pretty healthy. CJ saying, what do you think of the 5.6 VQ and the Nissan Titan? Don't have any experience with them at all. Not directly. I know that I think HP Tuners as maybe a year ago, had support for them. So any of the truck 4-valve engines, you know, the Toyotas in particular are the ones that I'm thinking about right now. I know you're asking about the 5.6. All of the Toyota engines, or I should say Japanese engines, are pretty robust. It's real windy outside too right now. I don't know of too many people that have had any major issues with them, is what I'm getting at. I had a Sequoia that had the 4-valve, what was it, a 4.6 in that thing? I loved it. That thing was great. They're real smooth running, real efficient engines. And they love them some boost. Fearless saying, Mason has a wealth of information, and there are only 29 of us soaking it in. Guys, tell your friends, share his channel, and let's get this view count up. He deserves better. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, like, subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell. The bell is the big thing. Back when I started this channel, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was. I didn't really put out a whole lot of content when I first started, but the big issue was subscribe. And the problem from there was the bell. If you were subscribed and you never rang the bell, then you never got the notification that I posted anything. And so that's probably part of it. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Diz saying, how would you feel about doing a power check, test a 5.7 in Jarrett's truck with a few different camshafts? Maybe start with tightening up the stock cam all the way to an aggressive cam. We could do it and Jarrett would be down, just time and cam costs. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a couple of profiles that I think would work really well, and it has more to do with tightening up the duration and then tightening up the lobe separation angle for the trucks. And for the cars, for that matter. Basically, you would take the contender grind and tighten it up to like a 110, and then pull about 2 degrees out of the intake duration-ish. Leave the exhaust about where it's at. But anyway, that would kind of give you an idea of a starting point, 110, 112, 114, that type of a deal. You could, as you get wider, you can open up the duration a little bit. But, for these engines and that profile, I mean, that would actually be a pretty sick combination. So, XC's asking, what are the pros and cons of the 5-speed SRT 8 transmission versus the newer 8 speeds? I'm just going to hang on the 8-speed here. 8-speed is a lot more aggressive in terms of gearing. And as a matter of fact, the 8-speed 1, 2, 3, and 4 gear ratios, when you combine that with like a 309 rear gear, I think it's the equivalent of having like 430 or something like that gears if you're to compare it to like the ratios in like Sierra. Like a more traditional, or I don't know, conventional, customary, I should say, transmission ratios. They're really good at acceleration, being efficient, the driving feel. The 8-speed is really good with that. And it is part of a generation of transmissions that really truly separates themselves from the old school feel, which would be the 5-speed. The 5-speed is very much in that whole, like it's a 4-speed-ish transmission. I like the 5-speed. The cool thing about the 5-speed is you can put a 370 gear in a 5-speed, and it becomes just this fun, old school feeling driving experience. You put, say, a 2600 RPM stall in the thing. Don't throw the freaking kitchen sink at it. Just some stall, or not. Stick with the stock. If you've got stock cam and all that, stick with the stock converter. They work well. But just put the gear in it, and they run great. They're fun. It's an old school feel. It's an old school way of going about things. Pricey, but it is what it is. And you can kind of do that with the 8-speed, but realistically, the 5-speed is a little bit better at that. So, look, there's a lot of E55s running around there, or used to be anyway, with Nag 1s that were making 650, 700 of the wheels on a dyno jet. That's some old school hot rod Mercedes stuff at play there. So I'll just say this. If you're going to buy one and you're planning on modding it, like say you're looking at an SRT8 300, or you're looking at an SRT8 Challenger, and it's got a Nag 1, it's an early model. Don't be afraid to run it. It'll be fine. It'll drive great. That's part of it. They really do drive nice. If you're of a certain age, it'll make sense when you put the 370. You'd know exactly what I'm talking about. And it'll fry the tires until you take your foot off the gas. Doctor is saying it would be some money out of the shop's part, but it would definitely be softball. Not softball. It's worth it in the long run. No, and I get it. I mean, it would be an exercise at that point. I see what you're saying. You just putting them together. It is what it is. I mean, the cams are kind of funny, and that's the big deal here is so the first thing people ask is, how much power do I get out of this cam? Like, I don't even know anymore. The funny thing about cams with the Hemis is that they really do just offer up either moving power somewhere in the power band. All of them pick up some power. It's just not all of them pick up a ton. But I haven't seen a cammed truck or a cammed car go slower lately, like modern stuff, modern cam profiles. I haven't seen any of the modern cam profiles go out into the world and feel crappy. Like like some of the older, the initial run of some of the comp line, they had way too wide of a lobe separation angle. And, they just were dogs down low. They just were. So that's what actually got me into looking at, I know I can do better than this, was just me driving 392 car with a comp 274 cam, and it was just a turd. In fact, I, at that point, was willing to put $100 on it that Shalandra, which was my 392 SRT at the time with a stock cam, would not only outrun it at the drag strip, would be quicker at the drag strip, but that my 60 to 130 would be substantially faster. It just felt that doggish. And it was one of these things where, it had laid down a number, but the number that it laid down was, not that much more than what my car put down. And that was the other thing. It really, I think it put down 15 or 20 more horsepower than mine did, but up to peak horsepower, my car was walking all over that thing. So anyway, y'all know the story with that. CJ's saying the 4.7 iForce. Yeah, those are awesome. I guess that's the one that I had. Pros and cons of a GDI V8 engine. Thanks for all the feedback. I'm guessing you're asking about like the direct injected V8s. If that's what you're asking about. So the direct injection, BMW had been playing with direct injection for a while, and they had early on had the same issues that Chevrolet started finding theirs, and everybody with direct injection experience. Sorry, I've got this. I had a piece of, so if y'all follow Instagram, y'all saw where I had that big ass splinter in my finger. It wasn't a splinter. It's actually a piece of metal that I had to dig out of my finger. It's that one right there. It still has a little bit of a line in there. Anyway, I had another one right here, and it's been bugging the shit out of me. So this sliver of metal. So anyway, I was able to get that out of my hand just now. So doing surgery on myself while I'm talking to you. Anyway, back to it. So the direct injection thing, the problem that you run into with direct injection is the coking of the intake valve. And so when you can get around it with fuel injector pulse timing, because there's no fuel hitting the back of that intake valve. There's nothing keeping it clean. That's why the Mustangs have a dual fuel system. They have direct injection and they have port injection. And again, port injection just keeps those valves clean. I personally am not the biggest fan in the world of it. I like it from you can hot rod with it a little bit. You can run significantly, well, I say significantly, you can run higher compression ratios with it because you can meter exactly when the fuel is introduced into the combustion chamber. What's it worth in terms of power? I'm going to just go out on a cliff and say 4%. I wouldn't even give it 5%. Modern port fuel injection is really good. So, any bump in power that you get is really going to be it's going to be a matter of what else you've done to the engine to work with the direct injection. Or in other words, it'll come from a higher compression ratio, different cam timing, things like that. 4% is not insignificant, but it's just not, blow your mind type of stuff. So for me, I'm a bigger fan of port injection, mainly because I don't have to worry about cleaning intake valves. I've seen intake valves on the direct injected truck or direct injected, just pick a GM engine, that had a ring, like this ring of funk around the valve. Valves look like ass, and there's some people that apparently had some issues with deteriorating performance, and you have to actually go in there and mechanically clean things. It's just not a good idea. It's bad stuff. So anyway, not necessarily something I would jump on. I get it. You can make a ton of power with those engines, but I mean, I'm like, whatever when it comes to, they can make a ton of power with any engine. Doesn't matter what it is. So there's that. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm just not a big fan of it. I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of it in the Mustang, where it's combined with a rail fuel injection that it keeps the valve clean. God damn it. What in the hell? I don't know if I've got a hair going like this or what. It's driving me nuts. Oh, CJ's saying, yeah, the 4.6 and 5.7 use chains, and the 4.7 use the timing belt. Correct. Mine was actually up for a timing belt change. Tuxedo's asking, are there any Nissan vehicles which are reliable? Yes, most of the Nissans are pretty reliable. One time I was saying, watched something about a Sentra. Oh, talk about watching Nissan Sentra. Yeah, no, those are good cars, man. Look, I'm a big Nissan fan. I've always loved Nissan since I was a kid. One of my loves is still the Nissan trucks. I mean, the little Nissan mini trucks. I freaking love those things. So, yeah, reliable for sure. And yeah, all of them are still to this day. So yeah, don't worry about that. Just, make sure you're maintaining them. X is asking, why doesn't Honda make a V8? They max out the V6. So I don't know. I'm surprised they don't make one for the Ridgeline. You would think that they would, or at least in something, but they just don't have a platform that would accommodate a V8, which is a bummer because could you imagine a Honda V8? I think it would be nasty. XE's asking Nissan GTR or Acura NSX. I'll have to go GTR on that one. I like the NSX, but the problem with the NSX is it wasn't very well received by the market that it was intended to go after. So there's a reason why so many of those cars are still sitting in lots. People just didn't take to it. Criminally pretty. Performance is definitely there, but try to resell one. I mean, nobody really gets worked up over it, but you say GTR and the panache that car brings with it just is, I mean, no other car coming from overseas has the cachet that a GTR does. So got to go that route. CJ's asking about 5 liter, which one is better? I'd say that the market would dictate that the 5 liter Coyote is the best in that respect. Main reason for that is there's just so many of them out there. You know, they're proving themselves to be extremely durable, and the rest of them out there, Genesis is good, but it's not as powerful. Lexus is also very good, but limited production, and it's in a performance vehicle only. Koenigsegg, it doesn't even come up on the radar. It's a completely different type of architecture from what were really kind of the crux, I think, of the question. And the rest of them are just, you know, typical Euro V8. So, yeah, the Coyote is going to be the cream of the crop on that one. It's in everything, and it's proven itself to be durable in all applications, not to mention a fair amount of guys that mod the hell out of those things. And you can't really say that about the rest of the suspects that are up here in that, in that list. So that's my opinion of it. CJ's asking, what do I think of these other engines? I don't. That they just don't do anything for me. I'm not a big Ferrari guy at all. I like the 355. Used to call them calzones. Those things were all over the place back in the day. I like the 455. Another kind of a cool car. I think after that, Ferrari it's like they were being styled by committee. And I'm not a big fan of Ferrari after the 455. So regardless of how fast, neat, cool, or what have you, it just doesn't resonate with me. Callis is asking, does the ported manifold you do, is it meant to work with an 84 millimeter throttle body? Yes, 84 or 85. I cut them to 85 millimeters. And then I will put the throttle body on the car, and I'll make sure that it's even all the way around in terms of the gap, from the throttle body to the actual manifold, just to make sure that the transition is smooth all around there. Usually leave the manifold slightly larger than the throttle body. And just get in there and cut it. Spent a lot of time doing that today. Monster Maxine, stop asking Thomas questions. XD, Lamborghini or Ferrari? Lambo all the way. CJ's something about the 4.7 i4s. Yeah, it's a good engine. XD's asking, what is my opinion of the 0304 Termi motor being forged from the factory? So the cool thing about the Termi engine, so back then, that was one of the first engines that you would see crack 1,000 horsepower regularly. And a lot of people were trying to get it done with Kenny Bell superchargers, which were just heat pumps like you wouldn't believe. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. They learned a lot from the Lightning, by the way. The Lightning gave that Terminator a lot to a lot of data, and there's a big reason why that car got so many upgrades. Oh, XD is saying Ford doesn't like making the big V8s, the 5-liter versus the 6.4. You know, it's funny. Ford as a company really never hung their hat on large engines. They played in the field, but they never really hung their hat. They always did more with small blocks. Perfect example of that. Everybody always goes back to the 5-liter, and they would always compare it to the 289. Which is not really a fair comparison to the 289. And we're talking about the 5.0, not just the carbureted. But the 5.0 had long runners, made a lot of torque down low, was designed to be an engine that wasn't going to spin past about 4,900 RPM anyway. So anyway, going back even before that, you had the Boss 351. And the Boss 351 was a real interesting engine because it was basically big block power coming out of a small block. And a lot of folks didn't realize that. You had all the LXX version engines, LT1, whatever that you had back in the day for the small block Chevrolets. And the Dodge, you had the 340 and kind of the 360, but it was basically the 340 show as far as performance goes. But the Boss 351 in terms of small blocks was just a badass. And so that was kind of their go-to engine. The 428 was a turd. The 429, unless it was a Boss 429, was a boat anchor. You could put headers on them and intakes and make power with them. I'm not saying you couldn't hot rod them, but factory for factory, car for car, they were just not, they weren't as exciting. And the problem is that they were constantly getting compared. But see, it's an unfair comparison though also. So I know I'm getting a little bit off. Anyway, Ford's always done more with smaller displacement engines, and they've done really well in that environment. The Aussies have, if you think the States are into hot rods, talk to your Aussie cousins. Trust me, they've got plenty to teach you, especially when it comes to Fords. And anyway, they're huge into Cleveland's over there because they friggin' made them over there for forever. Anyway, so the Ford and most of the big blocks, by the way, were all pedestrian engines. They were just there to be mass moving power plants. You can think of it a lot like the original one, not the original, but the 400 that is in Sierra. Yes, there is a displacement quality to it, but when you only turn the thing to 4,000 RPM, they don't make horsepower, they just make torque. That's why you got like the big Lincoln engines and the big Caddy engines. Those things don't turn RPM. They're not designed to do that. They're designed to turn 3,500 RPM, maybe stretch them to 4,000 RPM, and just make this bunches of torques, and that's it. Horsepower is like a sideshow that they do. It's like a side hustle. They don't really make horsepower per se. And most of the big blocks of the day were like that, with the only except like the Mark III Lincoln, the 460, the high compression Mark III Lincoln was a hot rod, a definite hot rod. But even looking at 440s, they have not really awesome cylinder heads. Those things were cashed out by about 4,500 RPM. They just weren't a lot of performance engines back then. So when you had a small block that was designed to be a performance engine, Yeah, the hot rod engine is going to outrun a lot of the big blocks, and that's exactly what the 351, the 351 Cleveland, the four barrel, the closed chamber head 351. That's what they did. They ran away with just showing their ass to a lot of big block cars. Again, yes, you can always hot rod anything, but factory for factory, you only had a small handful of really hot big blocks. You had side oiler 427, single overhead cam, which was like, they didn't really ever put that in anything. Not factory anyway. And the Boss 429, which was underrated primarily because it was like a day two modification away from picking up about 100 horsepower. So, but that's really it as far as, Ford goes for big blocks. And, people talk about Chevys in the big blocks that they had, but most of the Chevy big blocks were kind of, they weren't awesome. You had some 400 horse, 425 horse, 427s, and 454s would get up there too. But there just wasn't. Yeah, the really fast stuff had big blocks, but come on, it wasn't like, we're not talking about just blow your mind kind of power. But still a whole lot of fun, a lot of torque. And again, it's what makes Sierra so much fun. The 400 small block is designed to give big block power in a small package. And that's exactly what it does. Big block-ish power. And again, it does it. It's 400 inches. That's what it's going to do. Anyway, I don't know how I got to here from there, but that's what happened. Something about Fords and small engines. CJ saying European cars in general, also money pits. Actually, it's in the depreciation for those cars. Yeah, if you ever find yourself owning a Mercedes or a BMW, it's not affording the car, it's affording the depreciation. XC saying crazy how the 8450 makes the same horsepower as a 99 Mustang V6. I'll take it one different. Crazy how the 96 Cobra makes the same horsepower as every minivan just about being sold out there. If you take 300 horsepower and you take 4% out of it for the difference in how we measure horsepower today versus then, that's going to be, you're going to be down to like 288 horsepower, which is like every minivan, every rental car, every whatever is out there. It makes less than that horsepower. My dad's got really kind of a cool truck. He's got a short bed Ford with the 300 horse V6. That 300 horse V6 technically makes more horsepower than the 300 horse 4.6 that came in the Cobra motor. Kind of funny. CJ's asking, have you heard of the 351 Cleveland? Yeah, I think I just did a whole rant on that. Yes, I have. Darth is saying, B Mason, what's up with the Nitto Tri-5 R2s not being available anywhere? Called Nitto and they won't even let me order them. No ETA, no nothing. What's up with that? Just popular or COVID or what? Probably a combination of the two, I would say. Yeah, I don't know. They're not sending me any checks for it. I'll tell you that. Nor would they. XC's asking, 2000 Cobra R, 387 horsepower to the crank, was dynoing at YouTube. That's what it made to the wheels or something off. No, that was a 385, I think is what it was rated at. Fun fact on that engine. So the Aussies, we're just talking about that a minute ago with their love affair with hot rod Fords. They have, it's called the Aussie intake for the 5.4s. They put the 5.4 in everything over there. And if they had a Mustang, they would have put it in there, but they put it in Utes and all this other stuff. And their hot rod Ute used the 5.4 and it had a cast aluminum version of a little bit, slightly different, but a cast aluminum intake that they ran on those 5.4s. That was the hot ticket item if you were doing a 5.4 swap in a Mustang, was to get one of those Aussie intakes. But yeah, it's just a Cobra R. No big deal. ProCharger or Vortec, what's the better of the two? They're both very, very similar. I would say today, ProCharger would be better. But nothing wrong with the Vortec. Vortec's kind of an old school brand. CJ's talking about the Godzilla, the 7.3 engine. Yeah, I'd eat my shoe on that deal. They're doing a lot of really crazy stuff with that Godzilla. XD's saying it, 7.3, and yeah, that'd be cool if they did something like that in a Mustang, but let's see. Anthony's saying it's a fleet engine, not meant to be in anything that is not towing. Yeah, the thing is, though, is that freaking Godzilla engine's got a really good set of heads, a forged crank, and there's guys out there already hot rodding the piss out of it. I'm not going to say that it's better than anything, but it ain't bad. Tuxedo's asking if Frontiers are good trucks. Yeah, they are, as long as they're maintained. All the modern vehicles today are actually really, really good. As long as you stay on top of your maintenance schedules, you'll be in good shape. Oh, Anthony's saying, why does everybody think that Godzilla is good? I don't know. It's just driving me nuts with the name of that thing. But it's got a lot of really strong parts in it. And it's, no replacement for displacement, right? So it's a big engine with a forged crank. Again, it's got a really good set of heads. The thing is like a cam away from making a lot of power. And I was kind of on board with you. Initially, I was going, yes, it's an engine, but it's not an engine. It's not really designed for making horsepower, but the heads that are on it flow their ass off. And they're not as good as a set of Hemi heads, but they're pretty darn close. So Hexy's saying 426 Hemi is a king of V8s. Hard to argue that. Let's see. Oh, Mike's saying just had some vibrant mids installed along with the rounded square Mopar quad tips. Almost criminal that Dodge doesn't offer those quads on the Challenger from the factory. They fit perfectly. They look good too. Yeah, I don't know why they never changed that up. It's a good question. PD's in saying, hey, brother, good to see you on. Have you had any experience with the DNA Motorsports Chinese heads? I've had no experience with those whatsoever, man. None at all. I will tell you, I think the casting is pretty good with those heads, but I'm a big fan of, like, if I get a set of heads for anything, like say, for example, Sierra gets a set of heads. Kind of needs to have a rebuilt short block. But when it comes time for heads, it's going to be one of those situations where no matter what heads I get, they go straight over to Sean Hooper at Hooper's Heads, and I just say, go through these things. I think that any of the lower cost heads, the messed up part about it is that the casting of the head is actually usually pretty good. It's the hardware, it's the valves, the retainers, the spring pack. I mean, that's the part that's garbage. So you can buy a cheap set of heads, and depending on what you're going to do with the thing, I mean, typically if you're going to keep it under, keep it within a normal range of RPM, but if you're really going to try to turn them up, they're not going to happen with the springs they typically send. That's why I usually get different springs anyway. Whenever I keep the valves, but I'll put different locks and retainers in it just because valve train stability is kind of a thing for me. CJ's saying that the 6-liter in the 2500 makes 360 and 380 torque, which is the same power as the Coyote. True, but you have to remember that that 6-liter makes the power earlier on in the power band. But yeah, no, the Coyote, that's the spooky part about the Coyote. It actually makes power like a much larger engine. XT's saying European, yeah, they do make a lot of small V8s. saying spinning ain't winning. He's asking, what are some of the best races you've been in at the drag strip? So White Mare and I got together on a race, and I was actually on, you were asking about the Tri-5Rs. I was actually on my Tri-5Rs. And he was on his drag pack, and we had, like, he was in his dad's Red Eye. And it's a 309 car, narrow body, or regular body. Anyway, he gets out on me the way that Red Eyes do. Red Eyes are known for their ability to 60 foot. So he gets out on me, and I start coming around on him. And I'm running out of real estate at a rapid clip at this point. And at this point, the cars sound identical. They're both the same gear cars. I'm coming around him, and I kid you not, he beat me, and he beat me by about the length of this Pepsi bottle. I mean, it was that close. That was an awesome, awesome, awesome race. Because I'm just like, damn, I shouldn't have eaten that cheeseburger. I'm like hopping up and down. Anyway, that was a good race. I've had a lot of really, really good, tight, close races. Buddy of mine, Chris, with his Go Mango Hellcat, we've had some good races. And that's just with the Hellcat. I mean, I've had some great races in all the cars that I've taken to the drag strip. I had some really fun races with Shalandra with Corvettes, because Shalandra would get out on them like in a major way, and then the vet would start reeling me in, and it was kind of the same idea. It was just, will I run out of real estate before this vet reels me in? Most of the time, if I could hole shot him good enough, I would win. In fact, that car didn't lose a lot of races to heads cam intake Corvettes at the drag strip, the manual cars for sure. But I would cut a light on them, and they would have to catch me. They'd have to reel me in. Let's see. There's some other fun races I've had. Golly, I mean, there's so many anyway, those are the most recent ones. And, but yeah, that was a really good race with White Mare's Red Eye. Oh, CJ's talking about the Godzilla. Yeah. X is asking, what motor oil do you use in high mileage, just hype? So the high mileage oil isn't just hype, but it also isn't applicable more than likely for your car. The high mileage oil has additives in it that make O-rings and soft seals, things like that, expand. I don't necessarily like high mileage oil because there's some things in high mileage oil that aren't there to lubricate the engine. I'm buying oil to lubricate an engine, not to try to cheat seals into doing something else. So that's typically what you're going to see in these quote unquote high mileage oils. But I use whatever I can get my hands on. I'll use Mobil 1 a lot. Mobil 1's proven to be really good. And so I stick with that. The GMC gets Rotella T. The Camaro gets Mobil 1. The Hellcat gets Mobil 1. The Jeep gets Mobil 1. And the Mustang gets Mobil 1. So the Mustang gets Rotella. So pretty much if it's an older vehicle, it'll get Rotella because it's got a high detergent pack, and those cars, or truck and car, aren't driven as much. And I like the ad pack that's in Rotella for those types of engines. For the more modern stuff or the stuff that gets driven more regularly, I'll, take a look at, usually it's just Mobil 1 full synthetic. So, but any of the synthetics are good. Don't let anybody tell you that one is worse than the other. If there's anything that I do know about motor oil in general, and I've done a lot of God, I've done so many goofy little oil, if you want to call it testing, Blackstone Labs and all of that. Yeah, look, this is what I've discovered with oil. As long as you're staying on top of your oil change intervals, and by the way, you're asking about high mileage oil, never, ever, never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever, never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever, don't ever go outside of what your manual tells you. If that manual, like in a lot of these Mopars, says do not under any circumstance go above 6,000 miles between oil changes, don't try to go 12 or 15,000 miles like what's on the bottle of some of these oils. Just don't do that. That's a bad idea. Stick within the parameters that your engineers of your car put together for your maintenance. It's important that you do that, because when you look at just the power that these cars make per liter, these things are just crazy how power dense they are. You've got to keep and stay on top of your maintenance schedules. So that being said, is there an oil that is better than another? Pennzoil Platinum is pretty good. It's actually got a strong film strength. Its viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius, which is 200 degrees Fahrenheit, is around 13. So basically it's not to confuse the subject here, but if you get a 0W40 at 212 degrees or 100 degrees Celsius, it has a viscosity of 13, okay? So you're saying, well, no, it's got a viscosity of 40. Well, no, 40 weight oil at 212 degrees is a 13 viscosity, okay? It's just the hotter it gets, the thinner it gets, right? So it acts like a 40 weight oil at that temperature. There's a range there though, and Mobil 1 is a little bit less viscous at that temperature. So if you're running your car at really high oil temperatures, you need an oil that's going to be able to have that viscosity at those high temperatures. That's why guys like road race guys, you'll have road race guys will run, 1550 weight oil a lot of times. And they do that because they want that viscosity to be around 10 if the oil temperature gets to 240, 250 degrees, which it can easily get to in that environment. So you're getting the oil that you need to a viscosity that you need at the temperature that you're going to be running the vehicle at. That's why those vehicles, they do have to warm up, because if they don't, even though the oil is just perfectly fine to run on the street, if you're to try to run that on the street, you would absolutely have to make the time to have it warm up, because it's so thick when you first fire it up, by comparison anyway. So, but even that being said, a 1550 is still really good. It's still going to flow just fine. But anyway, you still let them warm up. But I've done so much oil testing. It's kind of, oh God. So anyway, pair the oil with what you're actually going to be doing with the vehicle. And again, keep an eye on oil temps. If you find that your oil temps are elevated, just make sure that you're sticking with that higher viscosity oil, or whatever the manufacturer has recommended, I should say. Let's see. PD's saying, yeah, I was thinking about going bare castings, going good valves, springs, retainers, etc. Still up in the air on these heads. There's not much info on the cheaper heads. Yeah, the problem, here's the thing. The problem with those types of castings is that you have to know somebody that does cylinder heads. When you take them that casting, they'll take a look at it, and chances are, if let's say it's going into a small block Ford, they're going to have if they've got a CNC machine, they may already have a really good CNC program for small block Ford heads. So they'll go in, they'll set everything up, and they'll just cut the heads to a profile that they know works well for that application. And then from there, they'll check the spring install height and things like that for the spring pack that you give them, because obviously the one that comes with it is going to be garbage. And then from there, it's basically just setting up the heads and making it work. But again, it's the quality of valves that are in it. You can buy a brand new set of heads and still drop another $1,000 on miscellaneous crap. So, P's for a budget 383. Yeah, then that's exactly it. The budget set of heads, what is it? Speedmaster makes a pretty decent budget cylinder head. Edelbrock, just a set of performers, worked pretty well too. I mean, the thing is that all of the modern cylinder heads work pretty good. I would still, though, have a competent cylinder head guy go over the heads, give them a good once over, leak test them, look at the valve job. There's still a lot that's going to need to be done to a brand new set of heads. I mean, look, it can be the difference between the heads working properly and not. Man, listen, when you're in the business, I hate to tell you this, man, but it's just like anything else. The things that it doesn't, okay, so when you're in any business, the things that never happen once a month, right? The things that rarely happen every 2 weeks or every week or whatever you want to call it. You see a little bit of everything, and I've seen brand new heads that were garbage. I've seen, for that matter, just brand new parts that were junk. So again, just know that coming into it. And the weird thing about it too is, like, one of the big pains in the asses is like coils. It's rare to find a good coils ever. Distributors are the other one. It's like, anyway, a lot of times stuff just isn't right from the factory. Tolerance stacking comes into play, which is, again, just a fancy way of engineers talk for manufacturer mess up. So, take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, there are decent heads that are out there. Edelbrock spring pack is okay. And without breaking the bank, going with a set of dart heads, which are actually really need to send those to a head guy, or a set of AFRs or something like that, which, if it's a budget 383, just a regular hot rod engine, 15 horsepower difference that you might see between that and a set of AFR heads, you'd never notice that in a million years, especially for a cruiser. CJ's checking out. Thank you, CJ. XC saying, what are your thoughts on the 426 Helfin engine? It's kind of garbage. Unfortunately, the aluminum block, it would have played really well if it were naturally aspirated, but apparently, according to some folks in the know, which I don't know if I can even say who these folks are anyway, have given that engine a whirl, and in real world beatdown applications, they fail. Will you ever learn? Anyway, yeah, and extended, you've got use, misuse, and abuse. Those are some parameters that you look at from an engineering point of view, and it's use, fine. Misuse, questionable, and abuse, absolute fail. I mean, I guess it would make for a neat street engine, but look, there's a lot of 1,000 horsepower Hellcats running around, albeit on E85. The Helfin was supposedly going to make that kind of power on 93 octane. I don't know that it ever did. That's the other thing. I think that it may have been a little bit oversold. And I had heard reports of people spinning bearings in them because of blocks flexing. XC's asking, aren't Hellcats and Mopars come from the factory with Pennzoil? Yes, they do. A lot of them do, yes. XC saying, I think 5W30 is an oil a classic weight, kind of. It's derivative of 10W30. But yeah, it's the same thing. So the 10W30 is kind of a fun one, because so it flows like a oil that is a 10 viscosity at 0 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the freezing point of water. And then at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius, or the boiling point of water, it flows like a 30 weight does at that temperature, which is again a viscosity of 10. It's a 10 CSE. So it's designed to transition from basically a 10 to a 10. It's very consistent at staying that one viscosity. So 530, it just means it's easier to pump when it's cold. That's it. XE saying 5.0 Coyotes run hot. Yeah, all the modern engines run hot. X is asking, what about the Valvoline modern engine oil made for 2012 and up? Trust me, they're all good, man. You're not going to find... See, that's where people get it a little bit twisted. You're not... Modern day oil is really good. There's only a couple of instances where I have heard in testing where oil has not done well, and that has been Royal Purple didn't do that great. I've seen some Blackstone Labs on Lucas oil that was a little inconsistent, but for sure with the Royal Purple, I've heard some things that were just not awesome. And of course, since we're talking about oil now, oil additives, no, just don't. Unless you've got an older vehicle and you need, like maybe a zinc replacement, you're breaking in an engine, really, I should say, and you're going to put the additive in it, or the zinc replacement, or just zinc supplementation. That's really the only time I would ever say yay on that. And even then, that's going to be tough to really get on board with because modern oil is so good at what it does. So, they used to be this shit called Slick 50 or something like that. Prolong was another one. It's just a bunch of snake oil. They just absolute horse shit. So yeah, don't do that. Modern oils are really good on their own. And with a little digging, you'll find that you can debunk a lot of what any of these additives and snake oil folks would like to have you believe. Aftermarket performance part saying 6.1 heads good for a 5.7, maybe the early 5.7, but not awesome for the later ones. The later 5.7 has better heads than the 6.1 has on it. 6.1 heads flow about 260, 270 CFM. The later, I'm AB dyslexic. The Apache heads on the 5.7, the later heads, I'll just call it that because I always butcher that. Anyway, they flow about 310 CFM. And that's been a low number that I've seen. Now, with that being said, yeah, the 6.1 heads are pretty good. And they do promote velocity, which is kind of a neat little party trick. But when it comes to outright power, it's really tough to beat the 5.7. Those heads anyway. Especially when you pair them up with the right cam. Cal is saying, I see some folks take off the front sway bar on a 392 for weight loss. Isn't that sort of dangerous? No, people have been doing that for a long time. I just don't like doing it. Number one, because I'm too lazy to do it. And two, you used to be able to get away with that with lighter weight cars. With these heavier cars, I mean, I guess you really don't need it. You're not going around corners, but I mean, I've never had an issue with it. It just makes the car a little bit more wallowy. I've only driven one LX car with the sway bar off of it. To be honest, I didn't even notice a difference until I got to the end of the track and I was turning off and I thought, man, this thing has a little bit more lean than normal. And I asked the guy, I said, you take the sway bar out of this thing? He said, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, getting down the track, I mean, it's a low 11-second car. It wasn't, I just didn't notice it. X is asking, what are my thoughts on the Shell 91 V-Power fuel versus like Chevron or Mobil? Is that the nitrogen enriched stuff? So when I was doing a lot of tuning and data logging with the Lightnings, I used Shell fuel exclusively. And the reason why I used it exclusively is I needed a consistent source for my fuel. So Shell it was. Now, was it better? Was it worse? Man, I don't know. But it was always very consistent. So if I've got anything to say about it, one versus the next, I would say that the consistency of the Shell was a known value to me, whereas the others may not have been as consistent, but again, Shell it was for me. And mainly, like I say, it didn't, I didn't, those vehicles don't have knock sensors, so I wasn't really playing around with knock sensor voltages or anything like that, but yeah, like I say, the truck would timestamp very, very repeatably with that fuel. Oh, X is talking about a Genesis 5.0 beating a 6.1. Maybe in the hands of a journalist, but yeah, I don't see that being a repeatable thing. I mean, on a tire, that 6.1 is going to probably sting the hell out of that Genesis. I'd be willing to bet. But I've been wrong before. And with that, guys, we are coming up with almost 2 hours into the show, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But I want to thank each and every one of y'all. Love each and every one of y'all, and wouldn't do and couldn't do the show without you. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Get out there, keep getting your shots. Stay safe. Wear your mask. If not for yourself, then for others. And with that, I'm going to send it. That's a wrap. Adios.